Hi, I'm Dom Griffin, your favorite film critic, and you're watching the Armchair Auteur. This is an ongoing video series I do here where we talk about movies, screenplays, television reviews, that sort of thing. So if you like movies, you like movie-adjacent popular culture, and you like to see somebody pick those things apart, you should stick around and subscribe because that's what we do here. Today, we're reviewing Clerks III. We're going to talk about Clerks III. This is nominally a review of Clerks III. We're also going to be talking quite a bit about Kevin Smith's entire career. We're going to be talking about midlife crises, but mostly Clerks III. And I know I haven't been around in a while, so if you're curious about what I've been up to, just stick around to the end of the video and I'll give you like update stuff. Clerks III is the 8th live-action feature set in Kevin Smith's View Askewniverse, a decade-spanning saga built on slice-of-life comedies and semi-autobiographical drama set in and around Smith's home turf in New Jersey. Set about as far after Clerks II as Clerks II was from the black and white original, Clerks III follows Dante and Randall running the quick stop with their sidekick Elias, a status quo that has sustained them for ages. But after surviving a heart attack, Randall realizes he hasn't lived much of a life and decides to make a movie about his experiences working at the quick stop, with he and Dante and all the original cast members playing themselves. He basically sets out to make Clerks, or from our perspective, to remake Clerks. It's all very meta, maybe a little bit too meta. Smart in a sense for Kevin Smith to be taking this avenue to doing a Clerks sequel, because now he can draw upon actual like real life experiences. Like Kevin Smith himself survived a heart attack recently. At this point in his career, Kevin Smith making a movie about making a movie is exactly as autobiographical as it was in the 90s when he made a movie about working at a convenience store. Initially, I love the idea of revisiting these characters every so often, with the Clerks segment of the View Askewniverse being kind of like Smith's own Antoine Doinel series, or his Before trilogy. Enough time has passed that he can somewhat believably write about aging and loss. The film is literally dedicated to Lisa Spoonhour, the actress who played Caitlin Bree in the original film, and also Randall actor Jeff Anderson's real-life ex-wife. But Kevin Smith is still so uniquely averse to challenging himself stylistically and as a storyteller, that the movie's emotional ambition is hobbled at every turn by his insistence on being the most safe, sort of low-hanging fruit version of himself imaginable. The film begins with a painfully bad opening credit sequence set to My Chemical Romance's Welcome to the Black Parade, with a literal retread, shot for shot, of several moments from the original Clerks, before roughly 15 to 20 minutes of largely unfunny banter, building up to Randall's big epiphany. Then, in the process of getting the movie together, there's a ton of cringy callbacks to other View Askew films, as Randall workshops his script and they audition actors. There's specifically a bit in the movie where Ethan Suplee has a cameo as someone auditioning to be in the movie, which is called Inconvenience, which is cute. And the line he delivers at the audition, which is a montage of a bunch of other cameo actors showing up and stuff, is his line from Mallrats when he doesn't get to see the sailboat. Because like,
when the hell do I get to see the goddamn sailboat?
You remember. Which doesn't make any sense, because the plot of Clerks III is that Randall is writing a movie about his experiences at the Quick Stop and RST Video, i.e. what we saw in the original film Clerks, and I guess also what happens in Clerks 2, that part's a little bit glossed over. That's a bit from Mallrats. Randall wasn't in Mallrats. He wasn't around any of that stuff, so like that scene wouldn't be in his made-up movie. I realize it's a little bit nitpicky to complain about a scene like that in a movie where Kevin Smith, as Silent Bob, turns to the camera as himself, making multiple asides about the filmmaking process throughout the film. Like, I get that, I know what we're working with here, but it's so irksome because it actually gets in the way of what does work in the movie. From the trailers, I'm sure you can already tell that Clerks III, for the most part, is rather lazily self-referential, cannibalizing the two films that preceded it, and even other unrelated View Askew flicks for easy, I understood that reference fodder. And on the one hand, I kinda get it. Like his last View Askewniverse flick, Silent Bob Reboot, Clerks III was conceived as being for the fans and to be released with a touring roadshow, synthesizing his filmmaking with his actual day job of being a charming nerd podcaster who travels the circuit making people with Funko Pop collections happy. So I get making a movie for your diehard fans, the ones who've been down since day one. But the problem is the sort of references the film makes. There's a lot of cutesy, fourth wall breaking allusions to behind the scenes trivia about the making of Clerks that are well known tidbits to the sort of people this movie is aimed towards. I'm a pretty lapsed View Askewniverse fan myself, and all of the stuff that gets joked about and pointed to in the movie, like I knew all that stuff. This takes preaching to the choir to a whole new level. Especially since, just like Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, much of what's being done is note-for-note replications of scenes from the movie being iterated upon, only with added winking directly at the camera. It's not making something new out of something old. It's, again, cannibalizing yourself like some kind of diminishing returns Ouroboros. You could probably sense in my voice and my choice of phrasing that I'm a little bit frustrated with this movie. And the truth is, I was very disappointed by much of it. As I said in my video about Kevin Smith's Master of the Universe animated series on Netflix, I have long been a very big fan of Kevin Smith. Like, when I was a teenager, I basically wanted to be this guy. IFC aired Clerks one night with the Laserdisc commentary track when I was a teenager, and I taped it onto VHS. I must have rewatched it a dozen times. Kevin Smith at the time was sort of my entry point into the idea of actually making movies. I'll cop to not being the biggest fan of Mallrats, despite it being a big hit with most of my friends growing up.
Come on, you fuckers think that just because a guy reads comics he can't start some shit?
But I still think Chasing Amy is an underrated and more mature work from a guy who had been written off at the time as a goof.
That's why Jughead wears that crown-looking hat all the time. Be the king of Queen Archie's world.
And while it's a little more ambitious than his skill level at the time, Dogma remains one of my personal favorite movies ever made.
This is from the guy who still owes me $10 over that bet about which was going to be the bigger movie, E.T. or Crush Groove.
You know what, fuck you, man, because time's going to tell on that one.
Somewhere around Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, an admittedly fun and broad comedy that does a lot of what Mallrats was after, only better, the limits of Kevin Smith's approach began to show. When Jersey Girl came out, a genuinely heartfelt and caring dramedy in the mold of the John Hughes classics that inspired him,
There is no Shermer in Illinois. Movies are fucking bullshit.
I thought we were going to see a new Kevin Smith, a guy who could make a variety of movies and continue growing and maybe stop making so many insecure jokes about how bad a visual stylist he is. Though most Zygmunt shot it, for Christ's sake. But no. Everyone had to make Bennifer jokes, so he had to go back to what worked for him. He had to make Clerks 2. And while I like Clerks 2, there is something genuinely sad about the happy ending to that part of the Dante and Randall saga being them content to stay exactly where they were in the first movie, but forever? But then something worse happened. Zack and Miri Make a Porno is probably Kevin Smith's best straightforward comedy. It sees him synthesizing the popular, at the time, Judd Apatow formula with his own shtick, and he wound up making something funny, moving, earnest, and enjoyable. It was supposed to be his ticket to the actual big time. Then it flopped. Hard. Do you like Fall Out Boy? Do you remember that time that Patrick Stump lost a ton of weight and bleached his hair and put out a solo record? Soul Punk was such a sincere and catchy record, the ideal distillation of the genre-bending blue-eyed soul Stump was always imbuing every FOB record with, finally presented without Pete Wentz T-Mobile sidekick penned emo Morrisseyisms. But when it wasn't well received by fans, what did Pat do? He went back to what works, which, unfortunately for him and us, was making esports tournament anthems with the rest of the band. Fucking shame on you guys. That record's great. But Kevin Smith didn't even fall back into actual old habits. Like, he didn't just turn around and make, like, Mallrats 10 or something. First, he made a couple of horror films, Red State and Tusk, which, you know, are decent. And those films allowed him to actually get financing for new movies after he got to actually have a career when I think he thought that he was just dead in the water forever. Unfortunately, though, most of those movies are garbage. I'm not going to talk about Yoga Hosers to you all. I'm not going to show you any B-roll of that film, because I like to pretend it doesn't exist. I don't want to talk about Cop Out either, because most of the back half of Kevin Smith's career, as far as I'm concerned, they're just awful films. Every one of these movies, even when they are kind of good, you can see a guy who doesn't want to try again. Because if he tries, he could fail. And if he fails, it's gonna hurt. Even when glimpses of the old Kevin Smith comes through, it's always like enshrouded in this like corny, basic, kind of unfunny attempts at comedy that are meant to be disarming. Because if he doesn't take himself seriously, then you're not allowed to either, which makes him kind of critique-proof. The thing is, Clerks 3 isn't a total disaster. It has a lot of stuff I actually really liked. It really moved me, like, I'm not gonna lie. It's unfortunate though, because it's also a movie I don't feel particularly good recommending to people, because most of it sucks shit. This is a movie where Smith makes a joke out of the fact that the original Clerks was intended to end with Dante getting murdered, and how dumb that would have been, before giving Dante an even more melodramatic subplot that it kind of exceeds his own grasp in the way the story is told. But there are a lot of well-done moments, and they all come from when Smith takes the movie's premise into like an earnest, honest direction. When there are scenes of Randall directing the movie that is essentially based on Clerks, and it feels like Kevin Smith is commenting on the movie that we all saw, it doesn't work. It's annoying, it's like cringe and strange and just kind of like lazy. But when the movie is engaging with the fact that Randall, in the movie, is making a movie about his own life, Not a movie we all like, not like a cult classic that was a hit at Sundance. Like, he's making a movie about things that happened to him personally. When the movie sticks with that, that's when it's good. There's a particularly fantastic scene in the movie where Dante and Randall have a blow-up, for real, right before they have to film the salsa shark scene from the original film. And in the middle of it, Dante starts actually laying into Randall, really letting him have it. It's the Clerks III version of the jail scene from Clerks II, tonally, and is exactly the sort of thing you want out of a movie this openly self-reflexive. Not because it's recontextualizing a scene from a movie we all saw, but because it's two men reenacting something they actually lived through, with neither, up to this point anyway, really wrestling with what it means to mine your real-life pain for on-screen comedy. I've been thinking a lot about the intersection of fact and fiction. I've been, for lack of a better term, abetting a lot in real life. My friend Steven and I tend to make bad jokes about our writers, about the sense that our lives are television shows or movies, and that all the different things that happen to us are being created by some unseen architects and not the consequences of our own actions. I find myself looking for meaningful arcs or thematic motifs sent to me by the universe, rather than just engaging with life as reality. And last week I worked a shift at a theater that I spent roughly 7 years of my life at. And while I walked around the booth right before I had to start a showing of Rocky Horror Picture Show, I felt like Jimmy McGill revisiting HHM. And I could just see all the dented trash cans of my past. And it gave me a lot of pause. I turn 36 next week. That's the same age Kevin Smith was when he made Clerks II. And I really feel like if I had to make a movie about my own life at this age, I can't imagine ending it with the camera dramatically pulling back at me still in a fucking theater. But maybe when I'm 52, I could see myself writing a more hopeful story about me following my own dreams and taking more action in my own life, like the best parts of Clerks III tried to do. Look, I can't sit here and shit talk Kevin Smith for defensively retreating into himself and refusing to try harder than he absolutely has to. Because even though artistically he's stunted, he seems to be happy. He seems to be a happy person. He's doing what he wants to do. He's making the movies he wants to make for the most part. Even though I think Clerks 3 is largely dog shit, I'm sure it made a lot of people happy. It did make me happy. It made me reflect on my own life. Made me want to call my best friend who I never get to see and tell him how important he is to me. It made me reflect on the years I spent in my own little quick stop hell. And it made me a little mad, maybe more than a little mad, at my former hero who never quite reached his full potential. I'm sure it's him I'm mad at. Couldn't be me. I don't know what's next for Kevin Smith, but I do hope the next time he checks in on Randall and the gang that his storytelling ability has finally caught up with the aspirational tenor of his work that has always touched me, that has always made me keep a soft spot for his films. I also hope that whenever that one comes out, I'm finally done with the part of my life where I have to punch a fucking clock every day. We could dream. But those are my thoughts about Clerks 3. See it. I don't know. I'm not going to recommend this movie to you guys. There's stuff about it that I think is good, and I think if you're a person who loves Kevin Smith or once loved Kevin Smith, that you should see it. There's stuff in here that like will touch you. But I'm not going to twist your arm about it. Again, sorry for the long absence. I've just been busy with work at the quick stop. But I have been doing something really cool that I never got to announce on the channel because I haven't done a video since it started. But I am now, in addition to my freelance writing work at looper.com, where I still do reviews, and this channel, I'm also the resident film critic at The Baltimore Beat, which is an alt weekly printed in Baltimore, run by a bunch of really incredible people. It's an Black-owned, Black-operated, nonprofit paper. And every 2 weeks an issue comes out and they let me review movies in it. And it's really cool to get to see my name in print again. I've been having a blast. Like, I love the paper. I'm going to link to stuff in the description, obviously, and like, you guys should totally check it out and support it. But yeah, I'm like, anytime I don't have a video up, if there's a movie you want to see my opinion on, you guys can always check me at Looper. You can check me at The Beat because I might be reviewing films there and not here. I will continue reviewing films here too, but I'm probably going to try to get myself to do less reviews and more like video essays and stuff like that. So I know a lot of you guys miss me doing things like that and covering rep movies and stuff. So I'm going to try to get back to that, you know, free time allowing. But yeah, thank you all for supporting me and this channel for so long and watching and sharing with your friends and all the lovely things you guys all do. I love you guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. I think I have another video coming out in a few days. Fingers crossed. If you don't see me in another month, I'm sorry. Bye.